Fractal, coined by Benoit Mandelbrot, used to expand on the concept of a theoretical fractional dimension to geometric patterns in nature, a mathematical concept where each layer deeper you have an infinite pattern, never ending, always shifting and growing in complexity. Argued for centuries what it means and if it means anything to the math world, the concept and use of its meaning has stretched from math to time, art, technology, law, architecture, and is often studied in its natural occurrence in almost all of nature. It is also one of the key ideas in chaos theory, as it follows the geometric chaos and conformity of the universe. And yes, this is very important to what we're talking about, because of one Susumu Hirasawa, a Japanese composer. Early on running as a guitarist in a punk and experimental rock band, he soon moved on to working on solo albums where his music never stayed in one genre as he pushed the boundaries of melodic ideas. Stating in an interview, "I dislike it when I hear someone describe my music as weird rock or weird techno." Surely this genre is hard to define in the music scene because it doesn't meet the standard of Western music charts. Hence, if a rock music critic attempts to judge me and my music, all they will come up with is ambient music, or music to take drugs to. The Japanese music scene doesn't help with introducing terms such as new age or transpersonality. I want to let my music reach a broader part of society, being music born from the Japanese culture. This is why I want to connect to the world that doesn't exist in the music scene. And along with major influences from the plight of the Japanese trans community, which had majorly affected his life and career, he worked in his solar-powered electronic studio with a method described as fractal control, using computer-generated musical fractals and cutting them and honing them to use them in his music. The same technology would be later popularized in several AI-generated ambient music programs. Satoshi Kon marked Susumu Hirasawa and fractal control as his biggest influences in all of his career. Satoshi Kon, born in October of 1963, like all the greats, grew up aspiring to be an animator along with his high school friend Seiho Takizawa, with similar aspirations. Throughout college, he pursued the arts and graphic design. He would not only study animation and manga, but in his personal life, he would make it to where he almost exclusively watched live-action films, such as Blade Runner, Throne of Blood, and Terry Gilliam's Brazil. And in his later years of college, he found work with Katsuhiro Otomo, the creator of Akira, who would not only launch his career, but be one of his biggest stylistic influences for the rest of his life. He worked as a writer for several of Otomo's movies, and eventually got his big break with Otomo's next big project, Memories, which not only was he able to write the script for one of the segments, but he also was on the art team, as he originally set it out to study in college. And the segment that he did for Memories, Magnetic Rose, not only is, in my opinion, definitely the best segment, but it also started to show signs of the ideas and themes that would run throughout almost his entire body of directorial works. In the mid-90s, he would get his first directorial debut as an episode on the original run of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, and that same year, he would start working on his very own manga, which unfortunately was never finished due to a creative difference between him and his co-writer. Off of, believe it or not, the success of his JoJo's Bizarre Adventures episode, he was able to get backed by producer Masao Maruyama for his first feature film, an adaptation of the book Perfect Blue. Originally, the film idea was going to be live action and a direct adaptation of the book, but unsatisfied under the restrictions of the adaptation and live action and due to budget, it was switched to an animated film, and he appealed to author Yoshikazu Takeuchi to allow him to make changes to the book. And in fact, he did. Satoshi Kon was allowed to write the story that he wanted to as long as it followed the vague premise of Perfect Blue, and also work in the medium he knew and was trained in. And Perfect Blue, a masterpiece in its own right, was born. Into the 2000s, he started working with several American-Japanese studios to produce his next film, Millennium Actress, in 2002, which earned critical and financial support enough for him to make another film the next year with Tokyo Godfathers, his first project moving away from the traditional cel animation. And in 2004, he took several of the overwhelming obsessive ideas that he had and put them together into the reality-bending social thriller series Paranoia Agent. But he wasn't done yet. In 2006, he made his return to film with the highly anticipated Paprika that he had been working on since writing the story for Paranoia Agent. The movie would not only end up being his most successful financially and critically, but it would also be his last. In 2007, he would do his final project with a segment in a Japanese animation anthology film, and he would lead, along with several other famous Japanese animators and writers and editors, the gathering of 500 Japanese animators for the founding of the Japanese Animation Creators Association, an organization to help Japanese animators get better working conditions and head up the discovery of new animators. And in 2010, he would officially pitch his next movie, Dreaming Machine. In May of the same year, Kon was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. He stayed at home the rest of the year and died in August, to the shock of almost everyone, as he had appeared in good health the last time he was at a public event and told nobody about his illness. Originally, it was planned to continue work on his final project, Dreaming Machine, led by Madhouse, the animation studio that had produced most of his films, but the project, due to budget and creative reasonings, never got finished. In 2016, producer Maruyama said in an interview, "For 4 or 5 years I kept searching for a suitable director to complete Kon's work. Before his death, the storyboard and script, and even part of the keyframe film was already completed. Then I thought, even if someone can mimic Kon's work, it would still be clear that it's only an imitation. For example, if Mamoru Hosoda took the director's position, the completed Dreaming Machine would still be a good piece of work. However, that would make it Hosoda's movie, not Kon's. Dreaming Machine should be Kon's movie. Him and only him, not someone else's. That means we cannot and should not compromise, only to finish it. I spent years to finally reach this hard conclusion." Though Kon's life was cut dramatically short, his body of work still remains one of the most influential not only to Japanese but American cinema, and his work with the Japanese Animation Creators Association is still having an effect on young up-and-coming animators to this day. Now, you may be thinking to yourself after hearing all of this, wouldn't Paprika be Satoshi Kon's magnum opus? Is it not his final film that garnered the most success and popularity and built on the same themes as the rest of his work? Is it not the most technically impressive animation-wise? And while the answer is yes to most of those questions, the project that I think fully encompasses not only his body of work, but also the style and method Satoshi Kon created, is the one and only Paranoia Agent. Paranoia Agent, as you may know, and I hope you do because I'm about to spoil the heck out of it, is a 13-episode miniseries roughly following the journey of former police detective Kichi Ikari and his former partner, Mitsuhiro Manawa, as they investigate a series of mysterious attacks from a boy with a golden baseball bat and rollerblade, starting with Tsukiko Sagi, the creator of increasingly popular Beanie Baby-esque stuffed animal, Maromi, who is joining me in the studio right now. I say roughly because the story, as quickly as it gets going, devolves into practical chaos, branching out with each different episode focusing on a different character or characters as their lives get tangled up in these mysterious and increasingly brutal attacks, to the point where one of the episodes is all just rumors of more and more fantastical tales of these horrifying events as paranoia and chaos ensues around the entire city. And yet everything still connects to our main players and builds off their relationships and personal journeys. To say that this has some of the most beautifully tragic, scary, and inventive things I've ever seen would be an understatement. And the underlying message the show leaves about not giving into false saviors and quick fixes, but instead to be present with the people around you and live through this hard life, whether that false savior is getting attacked so you don't have to finish a deadline that you know you can't hit, or being bullied to the point that you're begging to get hit to prove you're not the one doing things. It effortlessly explores the depths of depravity people will fall into when paranoia spreads through society, especially focusing on pop culture and technology. Again, very complicated, and I can't sum it up in words this brief. Please watch it. But if you refuse to watch it, then just think of it as all of the Larry Boy episodes combined. Shout out to the rumor weed. But where I think Paranoia Agent is really allowed to shine as a project is in the way it's written and structured, with fractal writing. In the creation of all of the other films and projects, he was dissatisfied that he couldn't explore the ideas that he wanted to the extent that he wanted to. He said in an interview about Paranoia Agent, "In the case of a film to be shown at theaters, I'm working for 2 years and a half, always in the same mood and with the same method. I wanted to do something that allows me to be more flexible, to realize instantly what flashes across my mind. I was also aiming at a sort of entertaining variation, so I decided to go for a TV series." So when operating episode to episode, he knew the conclusion that he wanted to get to, but allowed each individual episode to break down into its own stories and themes, while almost always connecting elements to the main story and the episode before it. For an example, in episode 2, The Golden Shoes, as we follow the first outside person affected by the attacks with Ichi, a former popular student who shares several similarities with the description of the attacker and gets bullied and ostracized for it to the point that he starts to lose his mind and wish to be attacked to prove that he isn't Lil Slugger. His tutor in school, who only appears here and there that Ichi actually has a crush on, is Harumi Chono, the main character of the next episode, Double Lips. Double Lips follows Harumi as she deals with her dissociative identity disorder, as her alternate prostitute personality starts to take over more and more, and she is pulled in two directions just as she got engaged to the man of her dreams. Right at the point of no return, Lil Slugger appears. Episode 4 follows a character that briefly appears in Episode 1 and explores his creepy and disgusting path, and how he got there, and so on, and so on, and so on. Each episode tied to the one before it, or the themes and ideas all centering around the attack and the stuffed animal Tsukiko had made, until the point that the paranoia and misinformation that is spread starts to take form and affect every element of the city. Even an animation team making a show about Moromi as they slowly, mysteriously die off one by one, while Moromi interjects telling you different things about how an animation studio runs. It's pure, unabridged, unaffected, allowed to be free, Satoshi Kon on the page. I mean, I may be crazy here, but I can't think of anything more perfect for his legacy and his body of work than a show with the ability to explore the depths of almost all the ideas his writing had ever explored, while also being one of the most technically best movies and most intimate and hopeful feeling messages from any of his projects. I think about the scene from episode 11 where Misai, the wife of the main detective that's been investigating all of this, is able to fight off essentially super rumor form Lil Slugger by realizing her faults and wishing to be attacked, despite her terminal illness and increasingly rough relationship with her husband. She does a massive monologue on the power of the human spirit and will and what love means and what it means to have hope in the people and the world around you, not giving in to the quick and easy answers that will make all of your problems drift away. Often, most of the themes in this show come down to the theme of self-harm or suicide, which, especially in fantasy sci-fi settings, is a very hard concept to explore with nuance and give the weight that it needs to have. But this show and Satoshi himself has every bit of empathy and understanding for the troubles and trauma and fear that causes pain in all of these people's lives to grow to unimaginable levels, where they feel like they're drowning in the noise and there's only one escape: Lil Slugger. It gives its time and sympathy to each and every character, even the ones who are the biggest scumbags in the show, because at the end of the day, this show is made as a sign of hope to any and every person who gets swept up in the paranoia and hopelessness and overwhelming feeling of the life that we live in. Bullying, technology, radio, all of it comes into play in this, along with government propaganda. Things that we very seriously have troubles with. It's genuinely hard to wrap my mind around a show built and written in the way that this is. The only thing that I can even think of similar to this is something like Cowboy Bebop or Neon Genesis, which both of their stories are close-ended and wrap around with each episode doing their own thing, but also adding to the overreaching story. But even then, it hardly even compares to the way this mystery progresses and the reality-breaking and different views of humanity we get in each individual episode. Paprika ended up getting a lot of acclaim and popularity and influenced several major movies to come, but Paranoia Agent feels like a big call to people of this generation, people of the technological age, and in this instance, every person who would watch it to come, speaking to a world being corrupted and sucked of its love and care for each other, with us all being wrapped up in micro-worlds and problems of our own making. But really, we're all dealing with the same world, and we all have the same things in our hearts. The final episode reveals the fact that Little Slugger and Moromi are one and the same, and Little Slugger, something Tsukiko had made up when she was a little girl, and her stern father had gotten her a puppy named Moromi. And while she was taking them on a walk, she accidentally let them go because of a cramp, and they ran into the road and died. For fear of her father, she came up with the story of Little Slugger, who caused the dog to die, and that story had come to mind again when she couldn't reach a deadline for a new design. Past trauma took over and spread into hate and fear and lies until they manifested and took over the city. But what Tsukiko never realized was that her father, of course, instantly saw through her story, but seeing her daughter upset from this, played along and even spent years searching for the fake Little Slugger, just so she wouldn't feel like he was mad at her. And when she finally is able to let her guilt and trauma from Moromi's death go, the paranoia is broken and the city is saved as she realizes there are no easy saviors without consequences. A theme that the entire show touches on even from its intro, as all of the characters find false security in the fact that they can get attacked, as it plays to imagery of all of our characters laughing while the song sings about things that have affected Japan for a long time. The nuclear explosions, tsunamis, an extreme government, all sorts of things that could happen to Japan at any time. The very unease of living on a small island that's so insecure. A part of the culture carried as a burden with it always. And yet all the characters are laughing because, as shown in the outro, everything will be alright as long as they give in to Moromi's attacks. As all the fractals that we've seen episode to episode and the crazy web that they make seem to connect in strange and geometric ways, come together in their most zoomed out and simple form. The heart of the show. Hope. Hope beyond any of the overwhelming feelings that we go through every day. Hope that there will be a tomorrow, and hope that there will always be somebody going through the same thing as you. I could spend probably hours deep diving into each individual episode, showing all of its themes grabbed from Satoshi's other works, crossing each individual character, story, moment, reference. There's a million things in this. Literally from episode 1, you are presented with so many tiny themes and elements that will be explored into so much depth later. Each episode is given its own room to breathe and have complexity. Each episode operates as its own story, and yet each episode ties together and deeper into the mind of Satoshi Kon. All of his interest, all of his heart, all of his message that he wanted to leave the world with was poured into Paranoia Agent. And that's why I think it is honestly his masterpiece. There have been other pieces of media that have touched on similar topics in just as nuanced and maybe not as complex of ways, but no one singular artist has spoken to me personally in my experience and the world that I live in like Satoshi Kon through Paranoia Agent. Several episodes took me so long to digest, I almost didn't want to take in the next episode yet. The second time I watched the show through, I watched it all through in one go, which I think is not the way to do it. The episodic structure is there for a reason. Again, fractal storytelling. It needs to be separated, and each separated piece has to connect. And each theme and each story has to connect. Each one creating one of the most beautiful, honestly beautiful pieces of art that I have ever seen. Satoshi Kon will be missed always, and his effects on the world of animation, the world of storytelling, and honestly my world will always be felt, loved, and appreciated. And who knows, maybe one day I'll be able to make something even half as heartfelt and raw as this show. But I don't think there will ever be another Paranoia Agent or Satoshi Kon. Thanks for watching, and thank you, Satoshi Kon.
絵から考えてその絵を見せるために話があるっていうぐらいの、重心の量をした。
Oh my gosh, thank you for bearing with me. Life has been crazy. Work, family, holidays. I always forget that November and December are the hardest months of the year to put videos out during. But things have been very, very crazy, so thank you so much, anyone who has stuck with me through the channel this long. Seriously, it means the world to me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's taken a long time to make, but I really wanted to get how I felt about Paranoia Agent out on page in a way that I was happy with, because this show means a lot to me. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I'll get a new video next month, right on schedule. I may have a collab coming up. It'll be interesting. We'll see. Lots of exciting things going on. Merry Christmas. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully this will be up before Christmas, oh my gosh. And yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. That's crazy to say, it's gonna be 2023 before I put out another video. That is insane, but I hope life is treating you well. Please go watch some Satoshi Kon pictures. I literally cannot recommend them enough. They are practically perfect, every single one of them. I love you all. Goodbye.